In the beginning of the story, we see a prison named the Shawshank Redemption. It is the most secure prison in the world. This prison holds thousands of inmates, but till date, no prisoner has ever been able to escape from this prison because its security is extremely strict. There are inmates in this prison who have spent their entire lives here. But the thought of escaping never even crossed their minds because the punishment for attempting to escape this prison is immediate death. Now the scene cuts, and we are shown a man named Andy in a courtroom, who is a banker at a very large American bank. The judge sentences him to life imprisonment for the murder of his wife and her lover. But Andy says, "I did not commit these murders." However, Andy had no proof to prove his innocence. Because of this, the court judge sends Andy to the world's most secure prison, the Shawshank Redemption, for life imprisonment. Andy is accompanied by several other prisoners. When these prisoners are brought inside the prison, the existing inmates bet among themselves about which of the newly arrived prisoners will cry tonight, and they wager a carton of cigarettes. They each pick a prisoner from the line standing outside. Then a prisoner named Red bets on Andy because he thinks Andy, very innocent and comes from a very wealthy family who has never faced hardship. Therefore, he believes Andy will be the first to cry tonight. Afterwards, all the prisoners are brought inside from the line, and each prisoner is locked in their cell. After a while, night falls. And then the old inmates start yelling at the new prisoners to scare someone into crying. And that's exactly what happens. One of the new prisoners starts sobbing uncontrollably and says he wants to go home. Then guards arrive and tell him to stop crying. But when the man doesn't stop, the guards take him out of the cell and beat him so badly that he becomes unconscious. On the other hand, Red loses the bet he placed on Andy and realizes that Andy is very strong because despite all the intimidation, he didn't make a sound. Therefore, the next day, Red gives his companion a carton of cigarettes because Red had lost the bet on Andy. Just then, we see Andy eating breakfast alone and quietly. Then Andy meets Brooks, the prison's oldest inmate. Brooks is about to complete nearly 50 years in this prison. Andy wisely tries to learn from Brooks about all the prison's rules, big and small, and about every inmate. Then Brooks tells Andy every secret of the prison and tells him that if he wants anything from outside the prison, he should go to a prisoner named Red. Hearing this, Andy doesn't wait and goes straight to Red. He tells Red, "I heard you can get anything from outside brought in." Red says, "Yes, I can, but nothing that could be used to escape or kill someone." And he tells Red, "I need a hammer." Upon hearing hammer, Red asks, "Why do you need a hammer? You are not planning to kill someone with it, are you?" And he says, "No, I'm not going to kill anyone. I have no enemies here." Hearing this, Red says, "You may not have enemies here, but soon some people are going to become your enemies." He points towards some people and warns Andy that they have bad intentions towards him, so he should be careful. The next day, as Andy asked, Red gets the hammer for him. When Red sees the hammer, he laughs because the hammer is very small in size, and Red thinks to himself that digging a tunnel with this hammer would take 600 years. Afterwards, Red delivers the hammer to Andy's cell through Brooks. Days pass like this. One day, while Andy is working in the laundry, those three people who have bad intentions towards him grab him. Andy tries to free himself, but he can't control three people alone. So, the three first beat Andy badly and then sexually assault him. This pattern continues. They keep catching Andy, beating him, and assaulting him. 2 years pass like this. An announcement is made that some people are needed for roof repair work. A team of prisoners is assembled for the roof work, which includes Red and Andy. Everyone gets to work, and the supervision responsibility on the roof falls on a very strict security guard named Hadley. Hadley is a very strict man who beats prisoners badly for the smallest mistake. While all the prisoners are working on the roof, Hadley seems troubled and tells his companions that his brother recently died, who had $35,000 in his account. Now, apart from him, his brother has no one else in this world, so he is entitled to that money. But the problem that when he transfers this $35,000 to his account, the government will take almost all of it as taxes. When Hadley was talking to his companions about this, Andy overheard the entire conversation. Andy, being a very big banker, knew how to get this money out without paying tax to the government. Afterwards, Andy, without thinking, goes to Hadley and asks him, "Do you trust your wife?" Hearing this, Hadley gets angry and grabs Andy, taking him to the edge of the roof. But before throwing him off, Andy tells him that if he trusts his wife not to betray him, he can easily transfer his brother's money to his wife's account without paying any tax, because there is a government rule that a person can gift their spouse up to $60, zero in their lifetime tax-free. And he also says that if he hires a lawyer from outside, he will charge a lot of money, but Andy can do this work for him for free. Then Hadley asks, "What do you want in return?" And he smiles and says, "I don't want anything. Just buy my friends some beer once your work is done." And the next day, all the prisoners are sitting on the roof enjoying beer. That means Andy had done Hadley's work. But Andy doesn't drink beer. He sits in a corner, happy to see everyone drinking. Andy's companions are also very happy with him because drinking beer in prison was almost impossible. But because of Andy, their wish was fulfilled. Time passes like this, and Andy and Red's friendship deepens. A few days later, a film is shown to all the prisoners in the prison, and everyone is watching a Rita Hayworth film. Then Andy comes to Red and says, "I need a large poster of Rita Hayworth." Andy asks Red for the poster because in the entire prison, only Red could get anything from outside. After this, Andy steps outside. But as soon as he comes out, those same three men who used to assault Andy are standing there. They tell Andy to come with them. But this time, Andy refuses. Upon his refusal, they grab him and try to force themselves on him. But Andy fights back. However, there are three of them. Because of this, they beat Andy very badly. But today, they couldn't assault him. However, they beat Andy so severely that he ends up in the hospital for a month, and the man who beat Andy is put in solitary confinement for a week. A week later, when that man returns to his cell, the same officer whose $35,000 tax Andy had saved is there. Someone had told this officer that this man had beaten Andy so badly that he ended up in the hospital for a month. Now, here the officer beats that man so brutally that he becomes permanently paralyzed. A month later, when Andy returns from the hospital to his cell, he finds a large Rita Hayworth poster in his cell, which is actually a welcome gift from Red. Days pass like this, and one day the prison warden, along with security guards, comes to Andy's cell and has it searched. After checking the cell and finding nothing, the warden's eyes fall on the poster on the wall. The warden says, "I usually don't allow posters in cells, but you can keep this one in your cell." Actually, the search was just an excuse. The officer had told the warden how Andy had saved his $35,000 in taxes. That's why the warden wanted to meet Andy for his own benefit. Andy has a Bible in his hand, which the warden takes. He takes the Bible and leaves, but after walking a short distance, he returns and gives Andy his Bible back, saying, "Salvation lies within." The next day, the warden calls Andy to his office and says, "An intelligent man like you shouldn't be behind bars." So the warden makes Andy the library assistant. In the library, there is an old man named Brooks who has been managing the library for many years. Then, the officer for whom Andy saved the $35,000 brings another officer to Andy. He actually had an idea income tax return issue, which Andy fills out in just a few minutes. Because of this, Andy becomes the talk of the entire prison. As the years pass, Andy's workload keeps increasing. Because of this, Andy needs an assistant, and he makes his best friend Red his assistant. One day in the library, Brooks puts a knife to another prisoner's throat and threatens to kill him for no reason. Actually, the government has pardoned him. But he doesn't want to leave this prison. Today, he has completed 50 years in this prison. His entire life has been spent in this prison, and he has completely forgotten what the outside world is like. This prison world is his real world, and he thinks that if he commits murder, his sentence will be extended, and he will be kept in this prison. Upon Andy's persuasion, Brooks lets go of the man whose neck he had held a knife to. Now, reluctantly, when Brooks is released from prison and comes outside, the outside world feels very strange to him. In 50 years, the pace of the outside world has increased tremendously. Where there used to be one car on the road before, now the roads are crowded with cars. A few days later, he starts working in a supermarket. But he can't adjust to the outside world at all. He constantly misses the prison and wants to return. That's why he sometimes thinks of committing a crime so he can go back to this prison. But Brooks doesn't want to commit any crime at this age, and he cannot survive in this crowded, fast-paced life. Brooks takes his own life. Before dying, he writes a letter to his companions in prison, which makes everyone very emotional when they read it. Meanwhile, we see the prison where the warden starts a new program. In this program, prisoners will be taken outside to work so they can learn how to earn money through hard work. The prisoners also agree to this work because they all want to experience the outside air. And in this way, the warden gets work from these prisoners. But through this project, the warden gets many contracts because prison labor is very cheap. The local construction labor teams outside don't get work anywhere because the warden gets the work done by his prisoners at half the price. The warden can do work at half the price because prisoners aren't laborers whom the warden would have to pay wages. Therefore, the warden starts making a lot of money by getting work done for free from prisoners. And this money is black money. But Andy, being a banker, converts all of the warden's black money into white. Now, a new prisoner named Tommy arrives in the prison. Tommy is very young and has already been to several prisons at this young age. Tommy has a very friendly nature, so he quickly becomes friends with many inmates in the prison. One day at the dining table, Tommy tells everyone that he has been stealing for many years, which is why he has been to many prisons, and this time too he is in this prison because of theft. Listening to Tommy, Andy tells him that if he keeps getting caught after stealing, it means this work doesn't suit him, so he should stop stealing. Tommy finds Andy's advice correct, so Tommy starts asking Red about Andy. Tommy tells Red that Andy is a very intelligent and decent person. Why is he in prison? Red tells him that Andy was a very big banker, but he murdered his wife and her lover, which is why he got life imprisonment. Hearing this, Tommy becomes thoughtful, as if he remembers something. Afterwards, he calls Andy over. Now, Andy and Red are in front of Tommy. Tommy tells them that 3 years ago, he was in a prison where he met an inmate. That inmate told him that one night he went to a house to rob it. During the robbery, the owner of the house woke up. To avoid being caught, he silenced the owner of the house and his wife permanently. Later, he found out that those two were not husband and wife but were lovers. And the woman was the wife of a very big banker. Some time later, when he read the news in the newspaper, he found out that when the police investigated these 2 murders, they suspected that the banker had killed them. Therefore, the banker was arrested for the murder of his wife and her lover. Here we learn that Andy was innocent. After learning all this, Andy goes to the warden and tells him everything. But the warden deliberately doesn't believe him because Andy is the person who converts his black money into white and knows all of the warden's secrets. Therefore, if Andy leaves here, the warden will not only be unable to make more money, but the secret of his black money might also be revealed. So, he tells Andy that this is a fake story. He hears such stories every day. Andy promises the warden that even if he is freed, he will keep his secret. But the warden doesn't listen to any of Andy's words. Seeing this, Andy gets very angry that he helped this man so much. But today, despite being innocent, he is not letting him go free. So Andy yells at the warden. Then the warden puts Andy in solitary confinement for a month. After that, he goes straight to Tommy and asks Tommy if what he told Andy is all true. Tommy says, yes, it is absolutely true. Then he asks Tommy if he can testify to this in court if called. Tommy says, yes, I am ready for that. Hearing this, the warden signals to the guard above, and that guard riddles Tommy with bullets. Afterwards, the warden goes to Andy and tells him that Tommy tried to escape, so he was shot. But Andy understands why Tommy was killed, and Andy thinks to himself that the warden is a very despicable person. Andy tells the warden that from today onwards, he will never do his work again. Then the warden says, you will have to do my work, or else I will make this prison a hell for you. And leaving, the warden tells the security guard to put him in solitary confinement for another month. Solitary confinement was a very terrifying place where a prisoner had to stay for a whole month in complete darkness, and he had already spent 1 month in this solitary confinement. But now he would have to spend another month in that same dark, small room outside. The news spreads throughout the prison that Andy is serving the punishment for a crime he never committed. All the inmates in the prison feel very sad for Andy. After spending a full 2 months in solitary confinement, when Andy comes out, Red comes to him. Andy asks Red if he will ever get out of this prison. Red says, yes, but only when I am very old and my mind stops working. Andy says, I will get out and go to Mexico. There is a very beautiful place by the sea in Mexico. It is said that a person loses himself there. I will open a restaurant there, repair my boat by the sea, and there I will need a hustling man who will bring supplies for me from outside. He was actually hinting at Red. Red, hearing this, says that hope is a very dangerous thing. It can drive a man insane, and he needs to return to the world of reality. Mexico is very far from here. Saying this, Red starts to leave, but before leaving, Andy asks Red to promise that if he is ever released, He will do one thing for him. Red says, "Yes, I will definitely do it." Then Andy gives Red an address and tells him that whenever he is released, he should go to that place where there is a beautiful tree in the middle of a large field. He had proposed to his wife under that same tree. He tells Red that under that tree, inside a wall, he will find a black stone, and underneath it, Andy has hidden a box. And whenever he is released, he should go there and see what is in that box under that stone. Saying this, Andy leaves from there and goes straight to the warden. He completes the warden's work and puts all his documents in a special safe. After putting the documents away, the warden gives Andy his clothes. He tells Andy to get his clothes pressed and polish his shoes until they shine like a mirror, after which Andy returns to his cell. Meanwhile, on the other side, Red is very troubled tonight because he fears Andy might kill himself. The night passes like this, and morning comes. As soon as morning arrives, all the prisoners' cell doors open, and all the prisoners come out. But Andy does not come out of his cell. This was the first time in 20 years that a prisoner did not come out of his cell in the morning. Then Red's eyes also turn towards Andy's cell, and Red's worry increases that perhaps Andy has killed himself. Just then, a guard angrily goes towards Andy's cell. But when he reaches there and looks, his eyes widen in astonishment because there is no one inside the cell. Andy has escaped from there. Now we see the warden, who takes out his shoes to wear them. But in that box are not his shoes, but Andy's old shoes, and just then a siren starts blaring throughout the prison. And this siren signals a prisoner's escape. The warden quickly goes to Andy's cell and sees that Andy is not there. Afterwards, he tells the security guard to go and bring Red because he was always with Andy. Red is also summoned here. The warden asks Red, "Where is this Andy?" Red says, "How should I know?" This makes the warden very angry. He says, "Was he a ghost who disappeared overnight?" In anger, the warden picks up stones lying there and starts hitting the guards and Red with them. And one stone he also throws at the poster on the wall. But the stone doesn't bounce off. It goes right through the poster. When the warden puts his hand inside, he sees that Andy had dug a very large tunnel there, which astonishes everyone because the wall is very strong. Digging a tunnel in this wall without machinery was almost impossible. But Andy made the impossible possible and escaped from here. Afterwards, all the guards go to where Andy had exited. There they find Andy's old clothes and the hammer that Andy had asked Red for 20 years ago. This is the same hammer with which Andy had been digging the tunnel in his cell wall for the past 20 years. For 20 years, Andy did this work so meticulously that no one even had a clue. Also, whatever soil came out from the wall, he would keep it in his pocket and scatter it on the ground. The last time Andy had done work for the warden, he kept all the documents of the warden's black money with him, and the Bible he had. He cleverly placed it in the warden's safe right in front of the warden's eyes, making it appear to the warden as if those were his documents, not the Bible. Also, the clothes the warden had given him to press Andy first wears the warden's clothes, and then puts his old clothes over them, and the shoes that the warden had given him to polish, until they shone like a mirror. Andy wears them and leaves. At night, as soon as all the lights go out, Andy exits through the tunnel he made in his cell. After that, he breaks a sewer pipe and crawls through that narrow sewer pipe to escape from the prison from which no one had ever escaped before. However, the sewer pipe through which Andy crawled to get out was almost 2 kilometers long. The next morning, Andy goes to the bank where all of the warden's black money is. This money is in the name of a person who doesn't even exist in this world. Andy was the one who had set up this whole document game, and the signature of the account owner at the bank was the one Andy used to forge from prison. Therefore, Andy has no trouble withdrawing all of the warden's money. Andy has all the documents in that person's name, and here we learn that from the day Andy entered that prison. He had been planning this work. The warden had treated Andy very badly in prison and had also killed Tommy. Therefore, Andy gives evidence of the warden's black money to the media. The next morning, this news is published in the newspaper, and when the warden opens the safe to look, instead of his documents, he finds the Bible. On the first page of the Bible, Andy has written, "You were right, salvation lay within," and when the warden turns the page, he sees the imprint of a hammer there. Actually, Andy had cut the pages of the Bible into the shape of a hammer and made a mold inside which he used to hide his hammer 20 years ago. When the warden had first come to Andy's cell and taken Andy's Bible from his hand and returned it, the hammer was inside that same Bible at that time too. Seeing this, the warden is shocked. On the other hand, the news of the warden's black money had spread throughout the city. Therefore, reporters and police arriving outside the prison to arrest the warden. And before the police can arrest him, the warden shoots himself. Some time later, Andy's friend Red's sentence is also pardoned, and he is even given a job by the government. But Red's heart is not in the outside world at all because he had spent 40 years of his life in prison. Red also lives in the same room where Brooks used to live, and Red also wants to end his life. But then he remembers the promise he made to Andy. Afterwards, he sets off in a car for that place and goes to that large grassy field where there is a very big tree. There is also a stone wall there. On that wall, there is a black stone, and when he lifts that stone, underneath it is a box. Inside that box are some money and a letter. This letter is from Andy. The letter says that Andy is waiting for Red at the same place Andy had told Red about in prison. Further, Andy has written that hope is a good thing. Afterwards, Red reaches that place, and when he goes to the seaside, he sees Andy sitting in a boat, fixing it. This place and everything is Andy's dream that he had shared with Red in prison. And Red had said that hope is not good. Afterwards, the two hug each other, and with this, the story ends.